from that impervious area that properties will have and so forth. And with that, we come up with a preliminary financial analysis and rate considerations. With that said, we put together an estimated stormwater budget. As you see, the first glaring cost there is just our benefits and salaries. With that said, this is actually what we're paying now. This is something we're going to devote any more resources to. And that also our capital improvement costs. With the areas that we've identified for really that we have to kind of really fund are going to be those projects there. And a big impact is our water quality, and that deals with the Clean Water Act. We have to take that initiative in regard to the permit and implementing our fee. Also, we have $100,000 devoted for implementing this utility fee for the actual billing of the stormwater utility fee. With that said, this is a 2% annual increase every year for the first 5 years. The expected cost, these costs are EPA costs. They kind of taken a poll of every other municipalities throughout America, and this is how most of them are implementing it and the costs associated with that. With that said, the city of Spartanburg, we devote on the low end, we devote less than $55,000 fee right there that most municipalities and counties actually devote to their MS4 utility fee. Also, the next MS4 permit is due out in September of next year. It's going to be even more stringent than the one we're under now. We look at this permit as a construction permit and as a water quality permit. With that, we look at all the streams, or EPA, you're going to have to look at all the streams in the city of Spartanburg and try to incorporate measures that's going to clean them up. The streams in the city of Spartanburg now are impaired with either or fecal chloroform and lack of biodiversity. That has to do with lots of different aspects of what's happening in the city. You have runoff, urbanized runoff. You also have nutrient runoff from everybody using fertilizer on their lawns. I do it as well as everybody else does. And with that said, there's different things you have to look at, not just the construction sites. With that said, the VIII back in 1992 understood that these costs were going to be kind of dumped on the local utilities, so they set up a authority to grant the local agencies power to implement a stormwater utility fee. The capital improvement projects we've kind of looked at, these are some probably everybody's seen in their neighborhoods. The Fair Forest Bridge replacement, that's over $1 million. We've kind of looked at that as being on the CTC list. We'll see in a few months if that's going to happen or not. The Chicken Pen Creek drainage improvement, that's more or less having to do with North Pine Street. When it rains, we have a 1-inch rain. You see North Pine Street, it'll go underwater, go across the road over to the convenience store as well, create hazards. Wadsworth Hill, we're looking at replacing 5 culverts. That's in less than a mile radius from each other. There's 5 culverts that we have to replace in a tune of over $500,000. Fernbrook, as we kind of went over the last one, that's the area an ongoing flooding issue that we have downstream from Hillcrest Mall. Sylvan Bridge is a little surprise that we've just found out about. It's going to have to be replaced as well. We look at the Greenville Creek stream restoration as more of a long-term flooding issue having to do with Greenville Creek. This is the creek that comes down through the bonded warehouse on the west side of Main Street. And then Commerce Heights. Commerce Heights, we all know, is over 100 years old. There's legacy issues with that area there. Pipes have been undersized. There's drainage issues, back up. You just see the same thing with flooding as well when it rains in Commerce Heights. These are just examples. This is where a lot of the money is going to go to these projects, these capital improvement projects. This is in Greenville. They had the same problem with downstream flooding. It's areas that were permitted. The retention and detention wasn't allowed for or wasn't addressed at the time. So they're having to go back now and retrofit areas to take care of the flooding issues. So this is a little area behind, it's actually behind McAllister Square. This is the flood control, or the gate that actually leads into a smaller or residential neighborhood behind there. We'll go back to that previous slide. That was $1.2 million just for that one little project there. This structure alone right here was about $500,000. So this work isn't cheap. It's one of these things, these legacy issues that we have, that every other municipality and county are addressing. We're just in that same boat as now as well. This is just a typical box replacement culvert, 40 feet, same thing. Lots of urbanized developments causing lots of runoff, which in tunes, you actually look at sediment runoff as well. It's just filling up these culverts, causing them to back up and causing them to fail as well. This is another project from urbanized areas as well in the city. What we would look at, stream restoration projects. We look at coming back. These banks have been scoured out from increased flow from parking lots, from city streets. It's just an ongoing domino effect. This was about 2,100 lineal feet for $700,000. This is a before photo and this is the after photo. They come back in and bench these banks back to an acceptable slope. Kind of brought it back to its natural setting. And we would look at doing some of these projects as well because we're going to have to implement water quality initiatives. And this is one aspect of that. We're not saying these examples are what we're going to use, but these are examples of what other municipalities are having to use. With that said, what we've come up with is the building units. This is the $10,000 question. What we did is we looked at the impervious area or the residential parcels in the city of Spartanburg, the living area. It's about 1,640 square feet. Added another 300 or 400 square feet of impervious for sidewalks and driveways. That brings us with the ERU unit, 2,000 square feet for impervious. What we would do is the city will calculate the impervious area for non-residential properties. Properties that's not considered owner-occupied residential, we would look at them as however the zoning classification of them are, exempt or commercial as well. We also would have two tiers for residential parcels. Under 1,640 square feet would be $250 a month. 1,640, over 1,640 is $3.50 a month. That's the numerical breakdown for each of the parcels within the city. Of that said, there's over 12,600 residential parcels. Above that, about 10,000, almost 11,000 developed, and close to 2,000 commercial exempt developed. This is just an example of how the fee would impact parcels. City residential customer would pay $250 or $350 depending on the size of their home. Give examples that we've given in the past as well. Burger King and Ezel would be 16 ERU units at $40 a month. QS1 as well, $177.50 a month. Also, the big one here we'd like to see is the federal building. They wouldn't be exempt. They would pay their fair share because this fee is not based. It's not an assessed fee. It's a fee for what you contribute. It's an equitable fee that we've looked at.
Does that include Spartanburg Regional?
Yes, right now there's no exemptions. So most municipalities don't have exemptions, and we want to follow those guidelines because the fee is indicative of what you're contributing to the runoff. With that said, this is what we would come up with our base units and our coming up with their impervious as well. It would be a little bit over $2 million. We would look at Spartanburg County lifting their one bill assessed property assessment on city residential parcels as well. What we look